Yeah, very good afternoon to one and all. See, in today's class, we are going to learn in detail context of each and every phase. I am here to explain about an in detail concept of each and every phase for performing the process of compilation. See here, if you have the question like this, if the question is like this, explain about various phases of compiler with a neat diagram or with a neat structure. And here this is the structure of the various phases of the compiler. If you see the slide that I shared to you all, the slide consisting of the structure of the various phases of the compiler. See, before learning in detail context of each and every phase, first of all, I'm repeating the same thing that about the definition of the compiler. The compiler is nothing but a translator. What we are doing, we're translating from one language to the another language. See here, if you see the slide there, I shared a structure to you all. The slide consisting of the structure where it is an various phases of compiler structure. See here, initially the source code. If you are considering this source code as an one type of a language and the target code as an another type of a language, in between what we are doing, we are performing the compilation. What the definition of the compiler? Converting or translating from one language to the another language. That's what we are doing here. That's the process of compilation that we are going to implement by using the 6 phases. And how the process of compilation is going to be carried out. For the answer, where for that type of question, the answer we are giving is by using the 6 phases and the 2 sub phases. By using the 6 main phases and the 2 sub phases. With this, we are doing the process of compilation. We are implementing how the process of compilation is going to be carried out. As I already explained in the last class that the various phases of compilation takes place with 6 phases here. What the various phases means, here we are learning about 6 phases where we are considering them as an main phases for doing the compilation, and the 2 other sub phases are symbol table and error handler. See what the 6 phases are: lexical analyzer, syntax analyzer, semantic analyzer, intermediate code generator, machine independent code, code generator, independent code in the sense, and code optimizer. There itself we are implementing an code optimizer, and then code generator, and finally the dependent code optimizer, and finally we are getting a target code. Once if you recall what the structure of the compiler is, then it is very easy to understand the structure of various phases of the compilation. It is very easy to understand how we are comparing the structure of the compiler and the structure of the various phases of compilation. Compare those two structures, then you can easily understand. In between the compiler, in between the performance of the compiler, how the compilation is going to be done. For that question, we are explaining with these 6 phases. For that question, we are explaining these 6 phases. That means we are learning about an internal implementation, how the compilation is going to be carried out. Learning the internal implementation, how the process is carried out by using these 6 phases. See here, we are having an arrow representation from phase to phase. That is nothing but that arrow representation shows that there itself we are implementing an pre-processing technique. There itself we are implementing an pre-processing technique. Means source is taking as an input to the lexical, and the output of lexical is taking as an input to the syntax. Say from the source itself we are not taking as an input to each and every phase. The previous phase output is taking as an input to the next phase. Make a note of this. The previous phase output is taking as an input to the next phase. Every time we are not taking the source code as an input for performing the internal operation of individual phases. We are not taking from the source code. We are taking from the previous phase. We are taking the input from the previous phase output. Now see here, here the 2 subphases are connected to each and every phase. Symbol table and error handler both are connected to each and every phase. What it means is, whatever the thing we implemented in each and every phase should be stored in a symbol table. And what the error handler will do is handle the errors at each and every phase itself. There itself, where when we are implementing an lexical analyzer, there itself we are handling if any errors, there itself we are handle those, and we detect those and rectify those and modify the code, and then finally we are generating the output. That output is giving as an input to that error free output is giving as an input to the next phase. Make a note, error free. The code which consisting of errors, we are not generating that from the phase itself. We are generating an error free output. We are generating an error free output. That output is taking as an input to the next phase. That the task should be performed by the error handler. Error handler handle the errors at each and every phase itself. So there is a connectivity with every phase. There is a connection between all the 6 phases within error handler and all the 6 phases within symbol table. This is the structure. This is a neat structure of various phases of compilers. And before going to explain about the various phases of compiler when we are writing in the examination, first you need to define what the compiler is and give the structure of the compiler, then draw the structure of the various phases of the compiler. Then you have to make a note of all these 6 phases. What are those 6 phases are? Then now you should explain and each and every phase in detail explanation of each and every phase with an example. Yeah, the first phase of the compiler. This is the first phase of the compiler. In the last class, I already explained with an example. Directly, I implement an translation statement and I implement all the 6 phases of the compilers, and then finally I show you how the machine level language is going to be generated by giving the high level language as an input program. And now what I am delivering you is in detail description of each and every phase. That means the context of each and every phase, individual phases. See, the lexical analysis can also be called as a scanner and can also be called as a linear analyzer. Here, the word lexical analysis is also can be called as a scanner and also can be called as a lexical analyzer. The two types of terminologies we are using here, one is a scanner and the another one is a linear analysis. Why? Because the input program should be in the form of an algebraic expression, so we are calling it as a linear expression. So see what the functionality that the lexical analyzer is going to be performed when we are implementing the phase number 1 always is the process of converting a sequence of characters into sequence of tokens. Make a note what the lexical analysis is. What we are going to do in a lexical analysis means the single thing that we are going to perform, taking the sequence of characters as an input and converting them into a sequence of tokens. That's all. And if you want to know what type of a token that I am going to generate by using the sequence of characters, means for example here we're having, while defining the token, we're having different types of tokens here. But for the character, we always take the token like an identifier. For the character, we always name the token with an identifier. So for example, see here lexical input. For example, my input is result is equal to a plus b into 10. Result is equal to a plus b into 10. This is the input program where it is in the form of an algebraic expression and it is in the form of a linear expression. So I am naming it as a linear analysis. And now scanning this input program by the scanner. And now what I am going to do is I am converting this sequence of characters in the sense result is a character, A is a character, B is a character, and converting this sequence of characters into a sequence of tokens. See here, this result is converted into an identifier. The red arrow representations shows the identifiers and blue arrow representations shows the operators. Here we are not changing any or converting the operators and the real number values. Only we are converting the characters. We are converting the sequence of characters into sequence of tokens. Here the name of the token that we choose is an identifier, or we can choose any type of a keyword. We can choose the keywords are also and tokens. They also comes under the token. So result A and B, these three comes under the identifiers, is equal to plus star. These three comes under the operators and it is a real number value. We are not going to change any value, where we are not converting this value here. We are not converting the character to the token. The values are not going to convert here. Only the characters are going to convert it by using this lexical analysis. Make a note of this. And this is about the first phase of the compiler. And now the second phase of the compiler, that is a syntax analysis. Syntax analysis can also be called as a parser, or we are parsing the sequence of tokens. So that we can call it as a parsing or parser. Here we can term with the parser or parsing. No need to worry about what it may be in parser or it may be in parsing. You can choose any one. Parse tree, generating and tree structure. What it means is tokens generated by the lexical analyzer. Tokens generated from the lexical analyzer are grouped together to form a hierarchical structure. And you all well familiar with the context-free grammars that you already learned in the last semester in the course Formal Language and Automata Theory. You know, by taking the input in the form of an context-free grammars, how to draw the trees, derivation trees, what the do's that we have to follow there while representing a derivation tree. All the rules that you need to recall them. Here what we are doing is, here we are constructing an hierarchical structure, that the structure is nothing but an parse tree, that the name of the structure is nothing but an parse tree. From what the input we are having to convert it, from the generated output of the lexical analyzer, we are taking it as an input to the syntax, and we are converting it into an tree structure. That we can also be called as an abstract syntax tree, having so many names. But the terminologies that we are using here is in parse tree. The hierarchical structure we are naming here, it is in parse tree or parsing. Syntax analysis. See, here we're having an example how to divide the statement. If, for example, you're having if then else statement like this, if x is equal to y, then z is equal to 1, else z is equal to 2. And see, here we're making the statements whether x is equal to y comes under a predicate statement, and z is equal to 1, it is an assignment relation predicate. X is equal to y, then z is equal to 1 is an assignment then statement, and z is equal to 2, again it comes under an assignment relation where it is an else statement. Means x is equal to y, z is equal to 1, z is equal to 2. For this we need to draw the hierarchical structure. The most important, where it is an heart of the compiler, that is an semantic analysis. What the semantic analysis will do, by implementing the semantic analysis, always the semantic analysis determines the meaning of the source string. See, here we're having an example for this. Semantic analysis determines the meaning of the source string. That is the definition that we are giving for the semantic analysis. It always determines the meaning of the source string. And after performing the semantic analysis, what type of an output that we are getting, what type of an output that we are generating from the semantic analysis. Means, see, here we're having an example in the slide. Int a is equal to 3.2, integer with the data type integer with an variable a is assigned with an 3.2, where 3.2 is an double, or we can take it converted into an floating point. But when I am running the program, I get an error there itself. What type of an error it is? An type mismatch error, because I am assigning to an data type integer, but the value that I given there is 3.2. So that type of errors can be called as a type mismatch errors, cannot convert from double to int. So there the bug is fixed. What it means is checking the meaning of each and every token, whether it is in a correct format or not, whether it is having a correct meaning or not. This was done by the semantic analysis. Means whether everything is in a proper declaration or not, checking out everything is in a proper declaration or not. This is done by semantic analysis, where it is the third phase of the compiler. And the next one is an intermediate code generator. Intermediate code generator can also be called as a machine like intermediate code. Why? Because This intermediate code generator is acting as a mediator between the analysis part and the synthesis part. Is mediator between the analysis part and the synthesis part. From this phase onwards, we are converting the code into a machine level language. That means machine dependent code. We're converting the code into a machine independent code is going to be converted with by implementing an intermediate code generator. It is going to be converted it into a machine dependent code. So this phase is acting as a mediator between the both analysis and the synthesis parts. And here we're choosing most popular representation, that is in 3 address code representation. See here we're having an example in the slide. Temporary one or T1, we can choose T1. Temp1, temporary storage variables, temp1, temp2, temp3, all these are temporary. We're choosing. We are representing and code in a 3 address code, representing and code with an 3 address code manner. What it means is we can directly store the result with an temporary, or the statement, the line of the statement should be in a 3 address code format. What it means is the resultant is equal to operand, operand 1, operator and operand 2. That is an 3 address code. Result is equal to operand. Operand is an variable, something and variable, operator and something and variable. Or directly the result is equal to an operand. It is having only 2 formats. So we need to choose only those 2 formats for representing an 3 address code for storing into an temporary storage. So this is about an intermediate code. And now the next one, after taking the output as an input to the code optimization, the intermediate code representation is taking as an input to the code optimization. Here what we are doing, the code should not be changed, but after applying the techniques of optimization, what is going on here is, here improving the intermediate code representation, How we are going to improve the intermediate code representation? Just by minimizing the lines of the code. So automatically what will happen means, whatever the machine code that we are going to generate, it should run faster. And if the code runs faster, then automatically we can achieve the 2 terms. One is an time complexity, and the another one is an space complexity. Make a note of this. Achieving in terms of time complexity and space complexity when we improve the efficiency. So whatever the lines of code that we optimized, it should be an correct and it should run faster. So for why we are doing this is for using the less memory and shorter is the better way. Longer is an harder way and shorter is an better way. So choosing the shorter in a better way, so we're optimizing the code. See here we're having the example, x is equal to y into 0. For example, the resultant, this is a 3 address code format. X is equal to y into 0 means resultant variable is an x. Now I'm performing an operation with the operand y. If I give the value for the operands, then it is going to be multiplied with an value 0. Then if I give any value in the place of y, what the output of x is? 0. Automatically x is 0. Why? Because it is multiplying with an 0. In the place of this line, if I use directly x is equal to 0, then what I am doing here is I am improving my code efficiency just by removing the variable y without changing the meaning of the code, without changing the meaning of this code. Whatever the resultant after executing the line like x is equal to y into 0 is giving, that result is same as directly if you take x is equal to 0. So minimizing the lines of code in such a manner, then automatically we will increase the efficiency. So this is the way of optimize this code. So we can take these lines of code in a program, then we can check it out, is there any optimization is necessary, then we can perform that optimization. Then for example, this program consisting of 10 or 11 lines. Now I can optimize them into 7 lines. Right? I think up to this you all understand. And now code generation. Code generation, which is the last phase in the phases of compilers. Generating an code by applying some simple code generations, applying some simple code generation algorithms where generating an target language. Generating a target language from the source program by implementing the code generation. Here, the code, whatever the code that we are going to generate is a target language code, where the target language code is in the form of a machine level language, where the machine level language consisting of machine level code consisting of some registers, some memory locations, or some instruction sets, or some arithmetic logic units, and all these you already learned in the course like in CO. In the course like in CO, there itself you learned about what the machine level language is, what the machine level consisting of, machine level language looks like, how the code looks like, and what the code consisting of, and all this I think you already learned in the CO course. Yeah, this is the another surface. See, we are having some of our students are having the doubt what is a symbol table, how the symbol table is going to be performed or useful in an compilers. See, there itself we are having the answer in the slide. Symbol table is a data structure. From the day one class onwards, I am repeating this. Symbol table is an data structure. What it contains means containing and record for each variable name or with the fields for the attributes of the names. Whatever the thing we performed at each and every phase, everything should be stored in a symbol table. Everything should be stored in a symbol table. This symbol table allows us to find the record for anything. If you want to search for anything, you can quickly get the data from that, retrieve the data from the symbol table. So this is also we making an record. Symbol table also finds the record for anything in the sense anything, whatever the internal functionality that we performed in the phases, or when we are processing the compilation, whatever the things that we are doing, that all should be stored in a symbol table, just acting as an just maintaining as like an record database record. See, this is the way of storing in the symbol tables, identifiers and class, where what the variables classes, description of that class, and what the values or address of that identifiers. This is the way that we are going to store in a symbol table. In the symbol table, all the whatever the functionalities that we are performing in each and every phase level, it is going to be stored in this manner. And here we are having another subphase like an error handler. Error handler is having the single line description, handling the errors at each and every phase itself, and detecting those, rectifying those, updating the code, and then generating an output from that phase, and that is acting as an input to the other phase. That's all. That's the functionality of the error handler. Always handle the errors, if any condition here we are going to use, if any, handle the errors at each and every phase itself. For example, I implement an XKL analyzer, and after performing, at the time of performing the semantic analyzer, if I find out an error from the XKL analyzer, whatever the implementation that I done in a syntax analyzer is wrong. So for that purpose, at each and every phase itself, we are handling the errors, rectifying those, if any, we are rectifying those and updating the code, and again we are generating the output from that phase, that is acting as an input to the other phase. So whatever the output we are generating at each and every phase should be an error-free output, and finally in this way, this is nothing but an using the translation statement, we are seeing how the phases of compilation is going to be carried out, how the phases of compilation is carried out. This already I explained in the last class. I think with this you all are clear about the most important concept in unit number 1, various phases of compilation. If you, again I'm repeating, just briefing this example. See here, my input program in the high level language, position is equal to initial plus rate into 60. And in this, what the sequence of characters are, position is a character, initial is a character, rate is a character. And now this position, initial, rate are converting it into an tokens. The name of the token that I am choosing here is identifiers. Every time we can choose an identifier. For the characters, we will choose only an identifier as a token. So to make it differ between the position and the initial, I am using a sequence number 1, 2, and 3. For 1 is in position, 2 is an initial, and 3 is in rate, like that. This is an output that I am getting from the lexical analyzer, generating from the lexical analyzer. And this is acting as an input to syntax. Now I am giving the structure of these tokens, giving the grouping together and phrasing it into a structure. Now there I made a rule like all the extra all the external nodes should be an all the all the external nodes should be an operands and internal nodes should be an operator. See, ID1 operand, get a difference, operand and operator. Along with the root node, the operator, we are taking the operators. See, ID1, ID2, ID3, these are the operands. ID1, ID2, ID3, these are the operands. So these are all the external nodes along with an real number value 60 is equal to plus star are the operators. And this is an parse tree structure. This is an parse tree structure. And the output of the two phases like in syntax and the semantic are same. See here, here we are seeing in the form of an parse tree. Here also we are seeing in the form of an, that means we are generating the output in the form of an parse tree. Then what is the difference between these two? There it was just we're taking the input from the lexical and generating a tree structure. We need not bother about anything. But here we need to bother for knowing the meaning of each and every token, knowing the meaning of each and every token. That means describing whether the source string is in the correct is having the correct meaning or not. So checking out each and individual identifiers, everything is in correct, everything is having the correct meaning. And while coming to the value, real number value of 60, here we need to define what type, what data type it is, in what data type we are converting it into. That means, for example, int to float, we are converting the integer data type 60 value to the floating point value 60. So here itself we gave the meaning of this. In the last class, I have a doubt that can we convert the data types to every to each and every token? No, we are not converting like that. We are giving the meaning for each and every token. Meaning in the sense, see here, ID1, this comes under an identifier 1 is having the correct meaning because the token, the name of the token for this ID1 is position, and the name of the token for ID2 is initial, and the name of the token for ID3 is rate. This is already stored in a symbol table. This is already stored in a symbol table. If I want to retrieve to know for which identifier I am taking this, for which character I am defining this ID1, I can easily understand by seeing the symbol table. Now, here I am giving a clear meaning of what type of and real number value it is. So here I am defining it into integer to float. Then itself, then after the semantic analysis, then wherever I want to use this 60, I can clearly define it is in float, int to float, or here I define like 60.0. See here in the multiplication operator, because it is a floating point value, so with the hash 60.0. So here itself in the semantic, there itself in the, while performing the semantic analysis, there itself I gave the meaning of the real number value. It is an integer data type to floating point data type. So after implementing the semantic, then this is an output to the intermediate code. See, intermediate code representation should be a 3 address code. Either the result should be directly with an operand or an value, or result should be stored with an operand 1, operator, operand 2. See, that means ID3 into T1. These ID3 and T1 are the operands. Star is an operator. In such a manner, we are representing the 3 address code format. First, initially, we are taking the temporary one and we are assigning this floating point to the temporary one, and this floating point value 60 is multiplying with ID3. So this part we are storing with an temporary 2, and now ID3 into T1 is stored in an T2, and this thing is we are naming with an T2. Now I am choosing the another variable T3. T3 is equal to this ID2 plus this one already stored in an T2. So So I am using T2 here. So finally ID1 is equal to what? The last temporary variable we used, T3. I am assigning this. To check it out whether whatever the thing that we represented is in a correct format or not. Correct format in the sense, after doing the reverse engineering, the output whatever we are getting should be an source string in the form of ID1 is equal to ID2 plus ID3 into 60. Let's see. ID1 is equal to T3. In the place of this T3, if I replace ID2 plus T2, means ID2 plus T2. In the place of this T2, if I replace ID3 into T1, in the place of this T1, if I replace into 2 float of 60, then finally what the expression that I get? ID1 is equal to ID2 plus ID3 into 60. That means without changing the meaning of the source string, I implement an intermediate code representation. So this is a correct code. Now the next phase, it is a code optimization. Here see, in the syntax and semantic, the generated code is same as it is. In the intermediate code generator and the code optimization, the generated code is same, both in an intermediate code representation. But what we are doing here is to minimize the lines of the code, we are performing an optimization. See here we're having 4 lines of the code, but here we're having 2 lines of the code. How we minimized this? That means directly we're giving T1 is equal to this part, ID3 into 60. And now what ID1 is equal to? Identifier 1 is equal to this ID2 plus T1. ID2 plus T1. Again, by doing the reverse engineering, then again we can check it out whether after performing the optimization, if any changes occurs in the generated output and the source string. Just we are going to check it out now. ID1 is equal to ID2 plus what the T1 is? ID3 into 60.0. Same string, same source string that here also we are getting. The meaning of the string should not be changed. But what we done here, we minimize the lines of the code by improving the efficiency of the code. That's it. This is the implementation part of the code optimization. Now this is taking as an input to the generator, code generator, and by applying some simple code generation algorithms, and now I'm converting it into a target language. My target language is an machine level language. So where the machine level language consisting of some data data types like an data transfers, floating point data transfer. See here I'm having LDF, STF, load data, store data, MULF, ADF, multiplication floating point, addition floating point. What these MULF and ADF comes under an arithmetic operations of floating point. These LDF and STF comes under an data transfer floating points. These are all we already learned in an CO, computer organization course. There we know how to write the instruction sets, how to use the registers and all those. See here I'm using 2 registers for my overall code, that is an R2 and R1. This ID3 is going to be stored in an loading this ID3 in an R2 register. Now R2 register consisting of ID3. Now this ID3 is going to multiply with 60.0. That means I am performing a multiplication operation, MULF. Now the R2 consisting of ID3, that means R2 comma 60.0, multiplying these two, and the resultant is going to be stored in an R2 register. And the line 1 is completed. Now going to line 2, ID2 plus ID1. Now I want to store this ID2, load this ID2 in some other register like R1, loading this ID2 in an R1. Now R1 consisting of ID2. Now I am performing an addition operation between these ID2 plus T1. T1 means ID3 into 60. Here the T1 means R1, R2. So adding R1 comma R2 and the resultant is going to be stored in an R1. Now finally I want to store the overall result in an ID1. So STF, ID1 comma R1, because the R1 consisting of ID2 plus ID3 into 60.0. So finally the resultant is stored in an ID1. That's all. This is the process of compilation, taking a high level language and generating a machine level language by using various phases. I think you all understand today's concepts, and with this example I concluded today's concept.